Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear esteemed viewer of Salam Television, we want to welcome you to yet an interesting episode of the Alhidaayah show that comes to you every Monday of each week. My name is Muhammad Sekalala. Today is the 27th of November 2023, and in this episode of Science and Technology, that is a topic that we handle on Mondays, we are looking at the aspect of safe car technologies. We know the world out there today, the rate of pollution of the environment is high, and with my guest here, we want to see what could be some of the alternative options we have in terms of the cars that we are using. And to delve into this subject, I have Mr. Sekalema Hamza, who is a lecturer at the Islamic University in Uganda, the Department of Computer Science. Mr. Sekalema, please say salam to the viewers.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Now, dear viewers, I welcome you to this show, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the intended benefit of sharing knowledge and doing anything that is adding good to the environment, because in our Sharia we know very well that anything that is good that you do with a good intention can always be finally classified as an act of ibadah. So even sitting and watching a show where we are expounding on how best we can save our environment, but at the same time maintaining mobility,
yes,
it is part of what we regard as ibadah, in the search of knowledge.
Okay, so dear viewer, whatever we do in Islam is should help us to get rewards before Allah, because we know Islam is a comprehensive religion that covers all aspects of life, from the food we eat, from what we should take as essentials in life, all that Islam regulates. So in the field of travel or movements, today we are using technologies in form of cars. We want to look at what are the options that somebody could use that should help him to protect the environment, because you know one of the leading polluters of the environment, we have told, the industries, and then the automotives come in that line. So Mr. Sekalema, what options can a person who wants to drive a car, or one that wants to contribute to the protection of the environment, look forward to?
No, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Now, one thing we should be aware of is that these vehicles cause a lot of damage,
yes, please,
to the environment.
Now,
some time back, scientists came out and gave very detailed explanation of how the use of fossil fuels is actually harming our environment. But in those days, the petrol companies or the fuel companies,
yes,
they actually downplayed the entire thing, because of course it affects their revenue sources. Meaning if you come out and say no, these vehicles are harming the environment, every liter you put in is causing damage X and Y, you are essentially decampaigning the fuel industry. So they did something very bad. They sponsored a counter argument.
Yes, please.
And they found some scientists that claimed that they had found that there is actually no harm being caused by the use of fossil fuels. So in the end, because for them they have a lot of money, they pumped out all this false information, and in the end people continued to use these vehicles. The other vehicle for ignoring the issue of how bad these chemicals that come out of vehicles is, was that most of them imagined that the effects of climate change would not really come in the current period in which we are. So maybe they thought maybe those things could have impact maybe in the next 200 years, and by that time we shall not even be around. but they were finally given a rude awakening when the effects actually occurred during our generation. So that's why you see now there's a lot of investment being done on alternative technologies for powering these vehicles, because the vehicle is part now of human life. There's no way you can eliminate it, but you can be able to use it in a way that is positive, in a way that is not harmful.
Yes, please.
So we are now going to be looking at alternative technologies that are available that enable us to run the vehicle, yes, but with a lot less generation of poisonous gases. So the graphic we have there is of a vehicle that is called a hybrid electric vehicle. Now the hybrid electric vehicle operates in a way that ultimately this vehicle is largely electric. But because the electric vehicle has the challenge of draining the battery, they now add a smaller engine to provide the normal movement, like the way you'd find a vehicle that is 100% driven by fuel. So the illustration there shows us the various components. One, you also need a fuel tank, because you also use fuel, but not very much. Then at the same time you have a charger for the electric part.
Yes.
So this vehicle, because it uses partially electricity and partially fuel, does not need a very large battery. So in that case, you will see, as we shall look at other models, that the other models do have very large battery cells that are at the bottom of the vehicle. But this one has a fairly small, what we call traction battery. You can see it just there near the fuel tank. Then at the front you have a normal engine like what would be in a normal vehicle, and some cooling system and etc. Then you have converters for electricity. So the idea around this vehicle is I'm running on electricity as my primary energy source. But since the battery drains up, once the battery goes to a low level, I switch to the normal fuel-driven engine. But remember that the fuel-driven engine creates rotational movement, and it's therefore able to charge the battery. So in that case, we are able therefore to achieve far longer periods of movement with the vehicle without necessarily charging with the electrical charging system, because as I drive using the normal engine, it charges the battery. When the battery gets full, I switch back to 100% electrical and I proceed. So in that case, you are able to balance between the two. You are not using the emission generating fuel engine too much, and yet you are also not being curtailed by the problems associated with battery drainage, which is our major challenge when it comes to the issue of electric cars. So that is one version of what they came up with, and I think you'll hear some of the vehicles that are called hybrid. They essentially operate on this principle.
So they're using fuel and electricity.
Electricity, but they are designed largely to be relying on the electricity part. But once the battery goes down, we switch to fuel. The fuel takes us forward, and it also charges the battery. So after a little time, we switch back to electricity, and we are able to perform movement. But of course, they also attach a charger, so that in case you are not going to be moving around, you want to use the electricity as primary, you simply charge using a normal charging system that can be attached to a house or a normal car charger. So that is one alternative that we can rely upon. So
the hybrid electric car is one option you're giving to the people who are driving and those who are planning on getting vehicles. So the viewer out there, take note that we currently have largely fuel-driven vehicles.
Here in Uganda we have
largely fuel-driven. Our brother is telling us that options are being made. If you want to really contribute to environmental conservation, you can look forward to the hybrid electric car. I don't know whether in terms of cost it is cost efficient and
of course, most of these are newer technology vehicles, so you'll find they're a bit expensive. But you'll find models available. The Toyota Prius, I think, is one of the oldest of the the hybrid vehicles that have been around for some time.
Do we have some
Yes.
sales areas, points in Uganda?
Yeah, the normal Toyota bonds,
Toyota
you
bonds.
will find it there. But I think the cost tends to offset. The Ugandan vehicle buyer is usually not very wealthy, but is interested in the vehicle. So they tend to cut on the initial cost of acquisition for as long as there are alternatives. They don't look at the hybrid one. But if you go to a place like Pakistan, where they buy newer models that don't go beyond 5 or 6 years, you find the majority of people are buying the hybrid vehicle. Of course, it's efficient even in terms of how much you spend on it, because largely you are using the electric part, but you don't need to keep charging all the time because the fuel part charges the electric part, and you are able to move forward.
So we have the fuel, that is the conversion one, that is not most of us. Then we have the hybrid. Do we have a third category that has been invented?
Well, he had displayed the
my
full
producer, you can display that. Yes.
So the all electric vehicle is now the other alternative.
All electric vehicle.
So the other one is hybrid. This one is 100% electric, meaning this one you don't find anything like an engine that uses fuel. This is 100% electric. They are the ones that are coming out mainly now, because
I hear Germany have produced many of them.
So all these major companies that produce cars now have electric car versions. Toyota, BMW. They are now actually competing in how far can I go without charging. Some are at 700 kilometers, others are at 250. So there has been a lot of revolution. Actually, the majority of innovations came just after COVID.
After COVID, yes.
So you can see what happens when these companies actually pick interest in something. They have the resources and they have the technology, so they can be able to invent. Because electric car technology has been looked at and frowned at for quite some time. But when the companies saw the need for it and switched, we have a lot of innovations in this area by all the major producers, and they are producing very good vehicles, just on 100% electrical. So as you can see in our picture here, this time we have a very big battery pack, which you see in the middle of the vehicle. Of course, it's at the bottom of the vehicle, but you can see it has more cells, because this time you don't have anything to support the vehicle apart from the battery. So you can't maintain a tiny one. Others you will charge after every 10 kilometers and it loses meaning. So you have the battery covering the entire bottom, and this time, as for purposes of movement, they have what they call electric traction motor. So the electric traction motor generates movement using electricity. So it is a large motor that is at the front, as you can see here. So they don't need to transmit power to the bottom, to the back of the vehicle. All that is done is we power using the front wheels, and we connect it to the battery. So in this case, we have two ways of charging our battery. One, when the vehicle is stopping. In that case, we disconnect the engine, and we are now relying on the vehicle's motion itself. So that energy that goes into stopping is partially used to charge the battery. Then the second method is, of course, the normal charging. You connect to the normal power source, and you charge the vehicle. So some of the charging points are public, just like you have fuel stations here. You go into a fuel station and you can.
There should be a whole system, a whole industry.
Otherwise, it becomes difficult. But many of the ones that are being produced, the modern ones, rely on just normal electricity supply. Meaning, if you're having it at home, you simply connect to your house's electrical system, because otherwise, if you rely only on public charging points, it becomes very hard. You can't find enough.
People, and then
so it becomes an inhibitor, because people are already used to being on the move. You can't tell them you are promoting green energy and at the same time you are affecting their mobility. So the charging systems are now built to be just normal charging systems that can be found in a normal home. You connect. 30 minutes you have charged the vehicle, and the vehicle can be able to run for the next 250 or up to some run even up to 500, 700 kilometers without an additional charge. So if you are running within Kampala, it's really very small distance, and you can be able to run multiple times using that same charge without any problem. So that is the 100% electric vehicle.
So viewer, again to remind you, we are looking at alternative car engine systems. or technologies that we could adopt to see how we conserve the environment. There's a large outcry there that the rates of environmental degradation are very high, and everyone needs to contribute in their efforts to save and conserve our environment. So we all know that the vehicles we are currently using for movement and travel are the fuel-driven vehicles, petrol, diesel, and we have seen that we have two other options that you can, if you have the means, that is, to one, the hybrid electric cars, and then the all-electric car. So, Brother Sakayama, I don't know, do we have another category? We currently have those.
I think our selector can select the next.
Producer, select for us the next
category.
Image. Can you choose us the next image?
I think we saw 4 of them.
So, okay, as he's trying to come good on the technical hitches.
Okay. So the next one is what we call the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle.
Yes.
Now in this case, it is nearly the same as
the electric
one that we had.
Okay.
So these ones, the variation is mainly in terms of what is the primary means of movement.
Movement, yes.
So for all hybrid vehicles, you choose one of the two as primary. So either you rely on the electrical one and use the fuel one as backup. Okay. Meaning whenever the electrical charge is lost, you engage the fuel, or you do the opposite. Okay. Meaning you instead use the fuel one as primary. But whenever you have an opportunity, you switch to the electrical one. Yes, please. So in that case, you are able to balance between the two. Yes. So that's how the two hybrid mechanisms do work. Okay. We can look at the other, what we call the hydrogen cell vehicle. I think he'll show us. Okay. So for all the ones that we have been looking at, you have a battery. You have a battery. A conventional battery. And you use that battery essentially to power the vehicle. You want to charge, you connect to a charger, and you go ahead and perform charging. Now when you see this hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, you can see that in this case we don't have something like a charger for the vehicle. Why? Because largely the method of generating power is now changed, and actually many companies, especially the Chinese companies, they are now relying more on this hydrogen fuel cell platform because for them you don't have all this charging business that you are doing. Okay. And you also don't use the conventional fuel that is damaging the environment. So what do they use in this case? You have hydrogen at the back there. So what would be the fuel is this time hydrogen gas. Oh, hydrogen gas. And remember that hydrogen gas is very much available in the environment. You can extract it from water. There are so many ways you can get hydrogen without necessarily damaging the environment. Because the other fuel technologies that we're seeing, yes, you don't appear to have damaged the environment because you are not doing emissions. But as we shall see some of the other problems, you find again as you create this battery, you need lithium and some other high-end components which again require damaging the environment at the mining point. At least it does not cause the same damage as these cars that essentially. So you have the hydrogen tank which is there as fuel. Okay. Then you have what you call the fuel cell stack. Now if the fuel cell stack, what it does is generate electricity out of the other hydrogen that we have seen at the back there.
So for the interest of our viewers, the green tanks I can see there.
Those ones are the hydrogen tanks.
Okay, so they're like if you have they call them gas cylinders.
Exactly. Like what you have your gas cylinder, you have some compressed gas there, and you continue to cook normally. So here the hydrogen moves from that green tank onto that central one, which is the fuel cell. It is converted into electricity, and it is now that electricity that provides the electric traction like we saw. So in this case, you reduce on the need for having all these batteries like we saw in the full electric, or having a dedicated battery somewhere at the back for the one. Of course, there is a small battery behind there, because ultimately with the electricity you need to temporarily store it. But you can see that the battery at the very back is still very small compared to the normal battery for the full electric vehicle. As you can see, they have a fuel filler there, but by fuel here we are meaning hydrogen. So in this case, we are not loading this very dangerous fuel, as it were. So this is another alternative. And as you can see, once the problem is out there, the engineering world will be able to find a solution and find moreover multiple solutions, because you can see this one is now totally different from the fully electric one, but you can see that it is still able to perform exactly in terms of mileage, how far can you go, in terms of efficiency. Of course, most of these technologies so far we find them in smaller vehicles. So we don't see a lot of application in heavy trucks and etc. But as you know, those ones are not very many. So if we are to talk of pollution, the heavy vehicles don't really do much of pollution, because they are not driven by so many people. Otherwise, it's the smaller cars that we are having here that do the majority of pollution. One person is seated inside the car will not reduce its pollution, because it's only one person. It will pump out all that carbon monoxide, all those very dangerous gases, as it were. So this is another alternative way in which we can use electricity to power our vehicle, but this time using a safer way, just relying on the hydrogen gas, as it were. So those are the main alternatives that we see of what we call clean cars.
Yes. Thank you very much. Viewers, if you're just joining us, this is the Alhidaayah show that comes to you every Monday, and we look at the aspect of science and technology in Islam. Today we are looking at the safe car technologies in the area of alternative car engine systems that are being developed, that we could adopt to help us conserve the environment in which we live. We are going to be taking a short break, after which we shall be considering other aspects of the safe car technologies. Producer, thank you.
Salam TV. Explore, enjoy and dance to the latest content, beats and kawozi from Uganda and beyond. Simply go to your Play Store or App Store right now, find Afro Mobile, download it straight to your phone and get started. Is it TV you want? Simply open the app, click on TV, select the channel you want and watch live. Are you busy right now? Then check out On Demand or enjoy in your free time. Afro Mobile. The future is now.
Oh, you can touch this. Hey, but you can test it. But you can test it. Everybody but one sip some. It's nearing the time. Flavors and much. Time tingling, thirst quenching and bombastic. Oh, sweeter than sweet, bolder than bold. Flavors explode, making you go ah. Oh, you can test it.
There's no flavor like Mirinda, now in a fresh new look with the same great taste. Enjoy the tongue-tingling flavor of Mirinda Fruity, Orange, Green Apple, and Pineapple. Mirinda.
Jovia. Bw'oyolekera ku lugendo luno olw'obulamu, mukuwa ekirabo eky'amaanyi agatazizibwa, amaanyi okulabibwa n'okuwulirwa mu mawanga ag'ewala ennyo, okutuuka buli wamu nga yadde togenzeeyo. Ensi yonna ng'ekuli mu ngalo. Okutambula mu biseera n'okumanya buli kimu ekirina okumanyibwa. Jovia kino kyekirabo kyange gy'oli.
Tewalikuma ku kituusobola okukola omukutu nangamegwa ogwa MTN.
Aba Nursery Recruitment Agency tukwaniriza gwe omwana ow'obuwala omunayuganda ng'olina passport yo wakati w'emyaka 21-35 jangu tukutwale e Saudi Arabia okukola nga housemaid. Wasomako oyogera ku luzungu jangu wewandiise naffe ogenda okole tojja kwejjusa. Tusangibwa kyalo Wajjala ku opposite ne Mogas Petrol Station ku Muzikiti. Oba osobola okuba ku namba y'essimu 0702 334861 oba 0394 825219. Weebale nnyo.
Nursery Recruitment Agency.
Salam TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear viewer, we welcome you back from the short break. This is the Alhidaayah show that comes to you every Monday, where we look at science and technology as a key aspect of our lives as Muslims. My name is Muhammad Sekadala. With me is Sekalima Hamza. We are looking at the aspect of self-care technologies, where we have noted that as a Muslim, it is a duty incumbent upon you to contribute to the conservation of the environment. As a Muslim, Islam wants you to conserve the environment, the lives of different creatures, including your own. And we can do that through adopting the self-care technologies that are being developed. So we started on a note that indicated that we have got different technologies that are upcoming to help us substitute the fuel-driven cars that we are having. As a majority, we have the hybrid electric cars, we have the all-electric. I think the government also has a project called the Kira Motors,
which is all electric.
All electric, then have the plug-in electric, and then the hydrogen fuel cell cars. So that's where we ended on, providing those options that we can look forward to. So, Mr. Sekalima, as we start the second part of the show,
Yes.
do you want to take us through what are the likely dangers that the one who insists on using the fuel-driven cars is going to visit on the environment, perhaps to have a clear appreciation of why they should take up those technologies that you've shared with us?
Okay. Now, like we said, there are a number of problems that come from the use of our normal vehicles, because they essentially burn the fuel that you put in, and they create the energy and the rotational motion. Finally, your vehicle moves, but at the same time, they create other residual gases. So among the residual gases, you'll find there is what we call nitrogen dioxide. Now, these gases initially appear to be innocent, but unfortunately they mix with other materials and create dangerous things. Now, like nitrogen dioxide, once you have it interacting with water, you end up with some kind of acidic elements.
They call it acidic rain.
Those kinds of issues. Then carbon monoxide is dangerous in that it is very unstable, so it tends to use oxygen in order to go to the stable form of carbon dioxide. And for the human being, once you have carbon monoxide in your system,
in large amounts,
essentially it causes your body to lose. Remember, our bodies rely a lot on oxygen for their normal operation. If you, for example, sit in a garage, the vehicle is running, pumping out that carbon monoxide, you're also seated there. Slowly by slowly, the carbon monoxide concentration goes up until you reach a point where this carbon monoxide is actually extracting oxygen from your body. Because for it, it is not stable where there is oxygen. Essentially, it reacts and creates the most stable.
So whenever you're in some environment where there's a lot of those
the fumes from the vehicles,
you find somebody gets dizzy.
It is very easy for you to be heavily affected just because of.
So the mechanics out there, we see most of them, they are in those garages without masks.
The good thing for them, they don't have enclosed garages. So if it is open, then the gas simply goes away. But if you are in an enclosure like a normal house garage, in that case you have to be very careful not to keep that vehicle there, because in some cases you may find a person has come with their personal vehicle, they have entered the garage, but they want to complete a call before they go into the main house. So they sit there for an extended period with the motor running. Possibly they have forgotten to switch it off. So you are exposing yourself to this very bad gas called carbon monoxide.
Yesterday I was looking at the news, and the Ministry of Transport and Works and Transport had come up with regulations to register these car garages. And I think one of them is the occupational safety of the employees needs to be added onto the list of requirements before they can be accredited.
So we pray that they actually do it the good way, because in some cases the issue itself is very fine, but the way it is rolled out it ends up losing meaning, and the registration occurs without necessarily fulfilling some of the requirements. So these gases that we have seen end up with a number of negative things. The very first one, which affects all of us independent of where you are on Earth, is what we call global warming. Now, for those that don't know, this planet of ours is a very special planet. It is the only one in the visible universe where we are that supports life. And it does not support only one life. There are billions of creatures that are existing on Earth because of what we see there. Some of the creatures are on land, like us and some of the others, very many, but a very big number that exceeds the one on land is in water. Those oceans you are seeing there.
They are visible and invisible creatures.
Exactly.
And I think scientifically people need to discover what are the invisible ones.
So unfortunately for us, there was the original imagination that the oceans, it's just a block of water there with nothing, but the oceans have a very big effect on what happens to us who are on land, and they have very many creatures that have now been affected by this thing we call global warming. So how does global warming actually occur? When light comes from the sun, it hits the surface of the earth. Once it hits the surface of the earth, primarily we expect it to move back into the atmosphere. Now, these gases that we are calling greenhouse gases, what they do, they trap the heat in the atmosphere. They also affect
what's called the
ozone layer. Now, around us, Allah has created a number of umbrellas in order to protect us from the sun. Because you see that sun there, it appears good when you are here on earth. But should you leave the protective canopy that is above us, the sun will kill you in just a few microseconds. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed the earth with the layers of protection. Now, one of those layers is what we call ozone.
The ozone layer, yes.
Now, all these negative gases, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, when they accumulate in the higher atmosphere, they begin to eat on the ozone layer. Because ozone is O3, essentially oxygen with an additional oxygen, whatever. So, once you have an oxygen-hungry gas like carbon monoxide and some of the others, they chew on that layer.
Which is like a blanket.
So it is like someone poking holes into your umbrella. So the umbrella was originally designed to protect you, but now someone has poked holes into it. So in the end, even if you are covering yourself, the rain is simply going through, and that is what is happening when we have a reduction in the ozone layer. Those very dangerous rays of the sun that would have been trapped by that layer and would survive end up reaching us, and those ones now have a very negative effect. So the global warming part, the temperature now increases. And interestingly, the earth is so balanced. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this earth as a miracle. That's why in many verses he talks of wa min ayatihi and khalaqu samawati wal ard, and he keeps mentioning the two things together, samawati wal ard. So meaning the earth itself is a unique thing. Although the samawat, which is the universe, it also exists. Now the earth here, Allah has balanced everything that you see. The angle at which the earth is, the speed at which it rotates around the sun, the speed at which it does its rotation. Everything is balanced to the micro, because you see, when they talk of global warming, you think the temperature is increasing a lot. They are talking of just 1 degree.
1 degree, but it's affecting the...
But just that 1 degree there causes major distortions in the oceans. So some of these weather effects that we see, a lot of floods, and they come due to distortions that occur within the ocean. So global warming is one major problem. The other challenge is with the air. And so remember, on Earth, what sustains us is essentially that soil there, the air we breathe, and the water that we take in. Anything that affects the quality of any of those three directly harms us, because we can't live without any of those. You can't live without air, you can't live without soil, you can't live without water. Now, when you have something like nitrous oxide accumulating, of course nitrous oxide, that one depletes the ozone layer, we've already explained that. Sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, they mix with the rainwater and they create what we call acid rain. Essentially, rain is supposed to be a very in fact Allah refers to it as ma'an tahura, water that is very pure, that water that comes from up there. But when you have all these dangerous gases lingering around, the rain goes through those gases and reacts as it goes down. So we end up with now acidic rain that has become acid just because of that. Then for the fuel, even before we use it, in some cases we get what we call oil spills. Because of the very heavy consumption of these materials, they are moved in very large ships that are called oil tankers. So this tanker, you simply pray that it does not get a problem. Should it get any problem, it essentially leaks out that very big amount of oil into the nearby ocean, and the material is very... So whatever things that have life in that area will be essentially damaged. Then human health is also affected. When you have a carbon monoxide, like we already saw, that one directly will damage you, and it creates a bit of a problem.
So viewer, we were looking at why we should adopt the alternative kind in technologies, and he was shedding us light on what could be the harm and the magnitude of danger that awaits us if we continue using the fuel car-driven vehicles we are still using. One of which is the aspect of global warming, which distorts the balance that Allah has placed in the atmosphere. The ozone being the layer that shields us from the rays from the sun. When it is affected by these gases emitted, it consistently gets damaged, and then we have the troubles we are having currently, the floods, the excessive heat, and the rest. Then the other danger is destruction or pollution of air, water, and the soil. We know the amount of life that depends on the air, water, and soil. It's so enormous that we need to really pay attention. So to the car manufacturers, to the dealers in vehicles, to those whose business is vehicles, you can see we need to work together, the government and different actors, on how we can collectively save the environment in which we are. Otherwise, if we don't, and when we look at the profit end of it, the revenue inflow of it, we reach a time where we cannot also live to enjoy that money. It is good to look at the money bit of it, but time will come when you can't enjoy the money. So we had better use the environment sustainably, as is the cry by the public or by people who are into the aspect of environmental conservation. So Mr. Sekalem, as we are winding up the show, we've looked at the available alternatives, then the dangers if we do not get converted to the new technologies. Take us through what will be the limitations. I really want to adopt this new technology.
But you'll be curtailed.
But what are some of the limitations I can look forward to, and perhaps see how we can mitigate them as we are concluding the show? Okay.
Like we said, although we promote this technology, it is important that we are as realistic as possible.
Yes,
truth is, the majority of car importers here are still stuck with the 100% petrol diesel vehicles. But still, when you watch the way these vehicles are treated here in Uganda, the government actually does not allow vehicles beyond, is it 15 years?
But so it is,
well, they've cut it now to,
to 8.
Yeah, they've cut it to 8.
Yes.
So that method there, they are trying to reduce on these vehicles that produce a lot of emission, because as time has gone by, even the manufacturers of these normal engines, the ones that are powered by fuel, they have been doing some tightening on the way the thing pollutes the environment. So you may find, yes, the vehicle is 100% fuel, but one, the fuel it consumes, it reduces a bit, does not waste it. Then two, also the kinds of emission it generates, some of them have been eliminated using technology.
Okay, but you can't order for a vehicle that is, I think, beyond 2010.
Those ones you cannot, they will not allow. And even the ones that are a bit old, they fall within the acceptable limit, but they are old, they put on, they want to call an environmental levy. So the environmental levy is a tax that they put on to you to force you to go and look for a newer vehicle.
I was asking some of the car importers, telling them, when you check online, the vehicle is $2,000, and that will be about 15 million. But reaching here, they say it is 35 million. I see where does the extra 20 million come from.
So they talk
but now, I think the environmental levy is one,
is one of them. So the environmental levy is put there to force you to think of a newer vehicle, because the older you go, the more into the pollution prone. Actually, you can see that the government even banned the use of these old refrigerators, and they see all those things were banned just on the basis of the kind of pollution that they generate.
So limitations.
So the limitations, one is availability. Like we have said, you simply don't have much of supply. So even if your near is good, unless you are going to import it directly from some of the online bonds that are available, so you'll find that there is a limitation in supply.
Then we were saying, one of the people in the country suggested to bail out a group of a community that is undergoing some issues with their property. Promise in 2 weeks I can get you the money. So if such a person, you give him the option of getting this car, I think you can even buy it in a day, but there is limited supply, like you
said.
First come, first serve. Yes.
Exactly. Okay. Then two is the kind of roads that you have.
The roads we have, yes.
Now remember that as you go into a lot of electricity, you essentially have all these electronic components that don't work very well with a lot of dirt, a lot of what we see on our roads.
What do we call them? Our roads
so mud, it's dirt, all these things, and the potholes themselves. Because a normal engine could accommodate a lot of distortions and etc. Even if you shake it a lot, most of its components can.
Even mere shaking could distort the components of the car.
Exactly, but when you talk of an electronic piece, for it, things are a bit tightly coupled. So you shake it beyond a certain margin, the vehicle will end up just becoming damaged.
So you have mechanical breakdowns.
So the kinds of roads you have could have a negative impact on the vehicle itself. Of course, you also have the issue of electricity. Here in Uganda, the electricity is still a bit more expensive, and you don't have a lot of these public charging points. So unless you buy the one that can be connected to the domestic electrical supply, you'd find a major inconvenience in case you bought one that is not easily chargeable from the home, because you'll not find any public charging points. The country is still not at that point. And I wish the Kayola and the other electric car Kira Motors had moved a bit faster. I think they have been making a lot of promises, but they have not made a lot of.
One was taking a ride around
they have not made a test car. They have not moved fast enough. Granted, the Ugandans are also weird. You'd find they produce the cars, then people are looking at them with a negative eye. They think that this thing from Uganda, quite. So
like people are making jokes about the Uganda Airlines that you'll be sitting and the pilot tells you the fuel is done.
So they tend to underlook the locally produced products, and it creates that problem. So
I think there's also the issue of attitude. I don't know whether the level of conversion of people from the fuel to electric.
Yeah, you may find the person doesn't really feel confident that this thing here is actually going to take them for the entire 200 kilometers that they are planning to go. So they could imagine, now what if I get stuck somewhere in a place where there is even no electricity nearby. So that kind of...
I could have in a backup in a jerry can.
Yeah, if you are using fuel, you can pack your own and move around with it. Okay. So those are some of the inhibitors that could prevent people from adapting this technology. But like we have said, this entire technology was frowned upon, even in the advanced countries that we are emulating today. But when need arose, just after COVID, they dedicated a lot of resources, and now you find there are various models, and some of them are quite cheap. Actually, if you go to a place like China, because for them initially they used to pollute. But I think they are still #1 polluter. But when effects started coming to them, floods and other very dangerous weather phenomena, they realized that they have to do something. Actually, China is now leading in terms of alternative technologies. They think of solar panels, etc., trying to move away from the use of fossil fuels or any other technology that is environmentally polluting. So for them, because they realize that ultimately this Hamza, who has only $5,000, there is no way he's going to buy a $25,000, $30,000 car just because it is clean in terms of environment. So they have created smaller vehicles that use a bit smaller batteries, but they are able to move around, because you realize that many times we are in that vehicle alone or just with another one person. So you don't need all this carrying capacity that is attached to the vehicle, because for over 90% of your journeys in the entire month, you were in that vehicle just seated there alone, or maximum you had another person. So if you can have smaller vehicles that only accommodate a few people, because largely we don't move in big groups, you can be able to have a lower cost, and in that case you are able to, possibly maybe next time we shall come and try to look at real models that a person can actually purchase. And the good thing with the e-commerce nowadays, you may not rely only on the local supply. You can be able to essentially acquire this vehicle through importation.
Okay, thank you very much, dear viewer. We can never exhaust everything the time that we always have, but just have to emphasize to you that in Islam, whatever you do, you get rewards. So perhaps you only adopting this technology, you could pray to Allah to make it a reason for you to become a better person and help you enter Jannah. Also note that in Islam, Allah tells us that if you saved one life, it's like you've saved the rest of humanity. And if you cause the death of one life, you have caused the extinction of all humanity. So look at all those different teachings that Islam has put forward for us, and see how we can contribute towards the conservation of the environment. And remember, with good intention, following the teachings of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, your Islam is complete. Have good intentions. I'm buying this vehicle, I'm adopting this technology because Allah has encouraged me to be among those that conserve the environment and conserve life. You'll end up being among the good Muslims that Allah talks about as the Muhsinin. So, Mr. Sekalim, as we are winding up, one word in 30 seconds, and we see how we conclude.
So in 30 seconds we are saying, let's make it part of our ambition to acquire these newer technology vehicles. Even if you may not go full blast electric, there are a number of hybrid cars, even among the older models, because here you'll find most of the vehicles are 2010, 2012, those ones. You still find a number of hybrid ones that can work, or even if it is not hybrid, at least you strive and look for one with a modern engine that is lower in terms of fuel consumption, and they are in existence. So you make that as part of your intention in the purchase of your vehicle, because for us as Muslims, anything you do with a good intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for it. Otherwise, the ignoring the impact you are having on your environment, finally you'll have to pay for it. Like we have said, all these countries that originally played around claiming that they can't compromise on their economic development in the name of the environment, now they have been paying with all these radical floods that come out of nowhere, and they are now adapting the technology. Solar technologies are coming up, and they're all being used to lessen on the impact we have on our environment, because the earth itself is there. You detonate it, for it will not die, because it's already a planet. But you who stays on the planet, you are the one to pay the taxes. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the capacity to always adapt cleaner and safer means of movement.
Thank you very much, viewers. Remember, you can always catch this show on the Salam Television YouTube channel. When you go view, comment, subscribe, and you can share with your colleagues, so they also benefit from the same. Otherwise, Salam is also an Afro-mobile app for those of us who want to continue following the programming. Till next time, I've been Muhammad Sekalala and Sekalima Hamza in the Alhidaayah show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam.
Yes.